Waiting for her new album to come out, but I don't know. I guess she's taking her time, which is just lovely. Now, this Hindu book. You know, for instance, what is the issue with sacrificial lambs? I mean, here in Hinduism, they're referring to it. In another part of the world, in Christianity, the sacrificial lamb, of course, is central to its teaching. In their rejection of the caste system, the Virashivas allowed and even encouraged intercaste marriages. As the mixing of castes is particularly offensive to traditional Hindus, this practice sometimes resulted in persecution of the Virashivas. The Virashivas' lack of respect for the caste system and for some aspects of traditional Brahmin religion is seen in many of Basavana's poems. In the following poems, he criticizes two features of Brahmin traditional religion: the sacrifice of animals and the reverence for fire. Alright, so let's see what the criticism is. The sacrificial lamb brought for the festival ate up the green leaf brought for the decorations. Excuse me. Not knowing a thing about the kill, it wants only to fill its belly. Born that day, to die that day. But tell me, did the killers survive? O Lord of the meeting rivers? In a Brahmin house where they feed the fire as a god, when the fire goes wild and burns the house, they splash on it the water of the gutter, the dust of the street, beat their breasts and call the crowd. These men then forget their worship and scold their fire, O Lord of the meeting rivers. That one's escaping me. You're going to have to... Someone want to teach me on that one? Please, give me a call. I wanted to share a couple other things with you. I came across this book, which I think is quite lovely. It's by this Dr. Candace Pert. And what I like about it is she's basically saying that your body is your subconscious mind, that, you know, you can map the presence of emotions somehow in your cellular structure. And that's not so much in your mind, but in your entire body holds the mapping of your emotional health. So it's very interesting, and I highly recommend it. And then I just picked this up today by, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. Is it Nouwen? Nouwen, Henry? He says he ponders God's love, first addresses being the beloved and listening for the still voice within. Then he probes becoming the beloved and uses the simple concepts of blessed, of broken, and of given. In the final section, he speaks about living as the beloved. And in this spiritual attitude, he develops the theme that we are a gift for others, not only in life, but also in death. Saying that Francis of Assisi died in the early 13th century, but still very much alive. His death was a true gift. His life goes on bearing new fruit. It says he's written more than 40 books. I guess he passed about 12 years ago. So that seemed interesting to me. What else do we have? You just got to keep digging, right? Must dig. Oh, yes. I need to be, as I'm sniffling, doing more with my vitamins and such. And that's what that is. Now, let's look at this. This would be an interesting thing. Now, much of the, and a lot of the things that I've been teaching on, a lot of it has to do with the blending of what are traditionally considered to be opposites, but are actually, if you, a new synthesis of an entire whole that is part of a series of interconnected, organic systems. And that the more we look at things as being separate and not connected, the less we're able to see the multi-leveled facet of our emotions' health, our body's health, our spirit's health, our intellect's health, and then how that all can be held in a healthy manner in a pluralistic society, instead of people left hating right and right hating left, and on. So in a similar fashion, I have this book here on chord substitutions. So the idea here is, like, instead of just playing a usual G major chord, G, B, D, you would play something related, but kind of it's a move a little bit away from that structure. Not far enough away that you can't recognize the original structure, but far enough away that it's beginning to make a connection with a whole nother entity, a whole nother chord. And I just, I'm analyzing it in that aspect because I think it's all connected. It's, like, what is it about just, very simplistic songs that are boring, 3 basic chords, very basic melody, basic energy, traditional development. What is it about the song that makes it interesting to me? There's got to be some kind of variation, some kind of development out of the usual structure. And that's, I think, the same thing happens in the spirit. So let's just look at this for a second and see if I can come up with a nugget here for us. It might be a little bit too musically technical, but then again, maybe not. Oh yeah, here's a good example of it. I was talking about, when you have, I don't have my yin and yang ball over here, but when you have the, traditional concept of good and evil, okay? And you have these mythic, to use Ken's term, these mythic structures that define good in very specific terms and evil in very specific terms. The two shall never meet. But the truth of the matter is there's something about the context, the background of the evil that brings out the good, and the good is not good without the backdrop of evil, or that evil is improperly named because there's a shadow nature that's necessary for development of the true self, and it's only our perception of what is good and evil that kind of boxes us in a place where we can't grow. So the way to grow is then to look at what is it that we were formerly thinking was evil that actually can touch what we formerly thought was good and create a new whole, a new entity. In the same way, there's an example here I just read here saying the bass line is the single most important factor in reharmonizing a tune. So, normally you're playing a G chord, you're going to have a G in the bass, but if you maybe put a B in the bass, which would be the third, and you relate those notes, G and D to B, instead of B and D to G, then you have a sixth and then a fourth, right? So the B in the bass, B, C, D, E, there's your fourth. B, C, D, E, F, G, there's your sixth. So in relation to a B in the bass, you have a 6/4 chord, which is much more, because of the fourth, sounds suspended. It doesn't sound quite resolved. It's like it wants to go somewhere else. It has an openness to it. In fact, that's why Claude Debussy and Impressionism in the late 19th century, music was considered to be revolutionary, was because of the suspended nature of the parallel fourths in the chords that just give it a sense of not being resolved. Whereas it's just a typical chord, B, D, resolving to G. You play B, D, it's a major third, or I don't know what you would call that, second interval or something, I don't know. But if you're playing a G chord, it just, it's the beginning and the last chord of the song, it just sounds like, yep, that's the end of the song, because there it is, there's your tonic major chord. But if you just change, not changing much, you just, instead of the B being up here in the middle, you're putting the B in the bass, and you still have G, B, D, but you've got the central note now is B instead of G. And so that's what I'm trying to say, is like so much of what is in our life is so connected that if we embrace it all instead of trying to compartmentalize it all, you can really see how so much is integrated, right down to the bass line and a chord, to the synthesis of Hegelian dialectic. All right, I haven't got